like dog owners or horse trainers, or there might be veterinarians. Some of them work in a zoo as a zookeeper or animal trainer and so on. So my students are really diverse, and their knowledge levels is also really diverse, from the sort of person who has their first dog at the age of 40 to somebody who's been training animals for 30 years.
I grew up around a few horse people.
Ah.
My first girlfriend had a horse, and it was remarkable to me to see and to get some just external understanding of the relationship between human and animal through observing that. I think of all the relationships between animals and humans, the horse-human relationship seems to be the one where there's the most amount of physical contact, right? You ride a horse. You learn to read the horse's intentions. It learns to read yours through these subtle, squeezing of the legs, or kicking, or not kicking hard, but just like a nudge of the heel, just a slight tug on the reins. It's really remarkable. What does the horse experience the world as? I've heard before that they sort of have these orbs of awareness around them, and that they're paying attention to things on the horizon, that they're clearly paying attention to things very up close to their body. But if you were to put us into the mind of a horse as best you can, how does the horse experience the world as a wild horse and with a rider on its back trying to steer it in a particular direction at a particular speed?
As an ethologist, I tend to take a step back and look at sort of the species in general. And horses are prey animals. They are also herd animals. And I think that we as humans, we tend to not really understand how different animal species can be from ourselves in how they perceive the world and what's important to them. So horses being prey animals means that they're usually quite vigilant. So they're paying a lot of attention to the world. And they have this, their visual field is really big, so they can sort of see what's happening back there. The issue I have with how we raise and keep horses today as an ethologist, and sort of looking at how animals live their lives in the wild, is that we keep them in a way that sort of challenges them in several aspects of that. So we tend to separate them quite early from their mom, even though in the wild they would stay for a very long time. So I think some of the concerns that I have as an ethologist with how we raise horses is the early weaning that we sometimes see, and also single housing for a species that's an aggregating species, and also that they, in the wild, they will forage up to 16 hours a day. And when we bring them into captivity, we typically feed them in the way that promotes very quick eating, for just a fraction of that time. And that can then lead to problem behavior. So for me, I think horses are probably one of the captive animal species where, for many individual horses, the type of life that we're offering is really not that great.
Interesting. Dogs, I know, are very smell-oriented. They experience the world perhaps largely, but certainly quite a bit through their noses. They can sense odor and scent at distance, and certainly up close. They like to get their nose right into things and sniff, get deep sniffs. And they're always collecting information with their noses. There's a huge range of dog breeds. And I think any discussion about dogs requires that we first kind of separate out some of the major differences, at least in terms of the purebred versions of them. When I see a Mastiff versus a Chihuahua versus a scent hound, I'm looking at, to me, what appear to be very different animals. Is it true that certain dogs rely on their sense of smell far more than others? And if so, do the ones that rely on their nose just not pay attention to what they're looking at unless you insist? I mean, the other version of this question is, how should we interact with dogs differently depending on what breed of dog they are?
Yeah. So I think I can't really answer the first part of that question. I don't know the extent to which different dog breeds their sensory capabilities, how much that differs between different dog breeds. However, how to interact with different dog breeds, I think that's really a really interesting question, because so during the process of domestication and in just the last couple of 100 years, really, we started selecting for different capabilities in the different dogs that we needed for different tasks, essentially. So if we look at a wolf hunting sequence, what they'll do is they'll do an orient response where they sniff and they're sort of looking for a prey. And then they will do some eyeing and stalking behavior. So they'll focus and they'll do stalking, and then they'll do chasing, and then they'll do a grab bite, a killing bite, then they'll dissect, and then they'll eat the prey. So we have this whole predatory sequence that we see in wolves. And what happened during the process of domestication was that we sort of selected for certain aspects of that sequence in different breeds. So we'll have the sniffers, the hounds that are really great at, and I guess maybe that answers your first question. I think that probably all dog breeds enjoy sniffing. It's one of the big things that people are exploring a lot now is nose work. But anyway, back to this process of domestication. And then we had the pointers who sort of we have really selected for that behavior. You know, that in a litter of puppies, we would select the one that was the most prone to do that behavior, and so over generations, we really sculpted that niche, so to speak. So a pointer will typically not proceed to the next behavior, the predatory sequence. And then we have like the border collies who might do some chasing or some eyeing and stalking and a little bit of chase, but ideally no grabbing. And we have the pure chasers, the greyhounds, for instance, and then we have the grabbers, the retrievers, and then we have the killers, the terriers.
People, I'm assuming, were anticipating you to say the pit bulls or the Dobermans, but anyone that's owned a terrier will know that they are great ratting dogs.
They were bred to exterminate small, like, rodents and stuff.
Yeah, anyone who's seen a Westie, those cute little West Highland Terriers, the little white ones, they're real cute. If one of those hears or senses a rodent in the wall, I've seen one stalk one for several days. That will move along. We used to call it rat TV.
Yeah.
The Westie will sense when and where the rodent is there with an absolute fixation. And if there's any way to get into that wall and kill that rodent, it's coming out with that rodent in its mouth. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
The amount of dedication is just striking. And it's all about killing that rat.
Yeah. So we systematically, intentionally bred for that, like a couple hundred years ago. And then we have the ones that don't show much of the predatory sequence at all, that simply mostly just eat, which are the, what do you call them? The ones that help livestock guardians. They still like the sniffing. So they tend to retain the sniffing part, and then specific breeds will have one or perhaps a few of the behaviors from the hunting sequence. So I think if we want to offer dogs a good life, we should understand where they are on that scale, and also that the working dogs come sort of with this evolutionary backpack. Their genetic backpack will encourage them to really want to do that work. And then we have also the sort of I think they're sometimes referred to as toy breeds, the ones that the lap dogs, who are not that interested in any of that working dog behavior. So I think we need to, with regards to the different breeds, we need to really understand what purpose they were bred for, I think.